Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to a very special edition of the CryptoManiacs podcast.
Hard Fork
Honored,
Day.
it's Hard Fork Day. It's Happy Hard Fork Day, everyone. I have a spoon. I guess it's not really a fork, but hard forks. We're talking hard forks, and our resident expert in hard forks and all things hard. Just returning from his trip to Amsterdam for Hive Fest, Mr. Brian of London is back, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause. The good sir is back. Honored to have him. I think this is appearance 50 or 52 or something like that on the show. So you should just bring him on like every week. Like, what the hell? Right, Task?
He just shows up when he wants on CTT, so I just presume he'd show up here when he wants to too. He'll just pop in, and it's like, and the difference is on CTT, it's on Twitter, so they don't even know who they're popping in till Brian starts talking. Then they're like, "Oh, it's Brian."
Hi, Brian.
They have some idea. Yes, hello everybody. I'm back. Though this time you invited me, didn't you, Task?
Yes.
So, I did not invite myself, which is
You can though, dude. I want you to know,
know.
anytime. Like,
Yeah. I
Well-
can't say I haven't been busy though.
you have. You've been traveling, everywhere around the world.
Well,
and,
the last time he showed up, Johnny just got back from his sailboat trip. So
right,
you know,
yes,
he
he was roughing it on the seas, right?
yeah, on the yacht or something.
Yeah.
It's
The yacht has itself. The yacht does actually have a Hive account now, where it speaks with its own voice. So, Sea Explorer on Hive, you can read about it.
That's getting pretty scary. Now, Hive is the Internet of Things, the chain for Internet of Things, I guess. But no, actually, the reason why I wanted you on, and I know it's been just a couple weeks since Hive Fest, so we don't have to delve too deep into your projects, but there are some things you talk about, not so much at Hive Fest, in other areas that I think are important as we start to see the Ethereum merge and centralization there and some other things. So we'll get into that. But you sent out a tweet this morning that said Hive Fork value for value was running great after the Hive Fork. You were doing some final checks. It seemed like everything was going good. So why don't you just give us a quick update for those who didn't see your presentation at Hive Fest? Just do a quick update on V for V and Pod Ping, so you can let everybody know where those stands and maybe where they stand, and maybe where you're going the next 3 to 6 months with them.
Yep. Well, as I sit here right now, looking to my left a little, V for V, the Lightning to Hive bridge is working flawlessly from the user's point of view. Behind the scenes, I'm getting some bizarre errors where every 6 hours or so, I update a post with the current costs, how much you get for 400,000 sats and so on, and that bit's failing, but it's entirely it's giving me OCD seeing a whole screen full of nastiness, but it doesn't actually stop the thing from working. And I've already had I'm very popular I'm big in Cuba. I'm not sure if that's legal in America, and I'm not sure that will help with my visa problem getting into America now that I'm now significantly sought after property in Cuba. But yeah, our Cuban Hive people have really taken in, and in fact, the account that was raising a lot of money for victims of the hurricane, because of course Ian breezed through Cuba before it got to Florida, and it did tons of damage there, and they're in far less good shape than Florida is to deal with this kind of stuff. But the money they've been raising, they've been putting a lot of it out through the Lightning Network to buy things, because apparently you can actually, go into real stores and buy real food and proper things that people need with Lightning. And so when you give them $50 Hive, it gets converted to Lightning and they get the full value of it. There's almost no fees involved. And in fact, I gave them a much bigger donation than all the fees I'm going to charge them. So they're way ahead. So that's, I don't want to take fees for charity. So that's all working. Didn't take a lot of, to be honest, it was quite new. Hard Fork 26 hasn't caused that I didn't need to change much. Podping I was a little bit more worried about because of the resource credits changes. Podping sends out custom JSONs. That's all it does. We send out, I can't remember the
5,000
number.
a day or so?
Something like that, yeah. From 5 main accounts and a few other minor ones. And I'm up to now, I've been delegating Hive to all those accounts. Now, this period, anyway, I did update the software behind it along with the help of my friend Alex, who's fantastic. We've deployed, there's a few more deployments to go, but the old version is still working. But I have a feeling that if it stops, it won't restart, which is a problem. But it's working. I'm watching the resource credits usage. And my goal is to be able to undelegate, because I've got like the primary accounts have got 1,300 or 1,500 Hive delegated to them. And of course, that's unused Hive power because it doesn't vote or do any of the other useful stuff. It's just delegated. I'll withdraw that delegation and replace it with an RC delegation, but I can't do that immediately because there's 5 days. You have to withdraw the Hive delegation, which takes 5 days before you get it back. Then you have to wait for your RCs to top up. Then you can delegate the RCs. So I've just basically thrown 8 Hive power at the whole problem. And so I've got my Podping account, which does the delegation. And then I've got my Brian of London account, which is just delegated 1,000 Hive to everybody who, so I'll draw down the delegation from Podping, replace that with RC delegations, and then draw down my Brian of London. But I think, within 2 weeks, I'll see where I stand. But that's the thing about this chain is that the worst that's going to happen is I'm going to lose a few dollars worth of rewards I could have got for curation. Big deal. It's not a cost. It's not like the gas fees on Ethereum.
I wrote an article about that the other day, and it's people don't realize because there's a project called Scale, Skale, on Ethereum, which is promoting itself. And there was an article written about that. It's the newest in Web3 because it's tied to Ethereum and it has no cost, no transaction fees, which isn't true. There's no transaction fees to the user. They roll the transaction fees over the applications. So there still is a transaction fee. It is an improvement, I will admit that, where, if the user doesn't have to pay for social media on Web3, and the application is okay, that makes a little more sense as long as the application's monetizing, but it's still an expense. It's still a cost. Every time they transact and pay that transaction fee, it's a cost. We have the costs and resource credits, which is a made up quantifiable system, and those resource credits recharge. So like you said, you still own your Hive power. You don't lose anything. And if Hive goes from 50 cents to $5, you actually 10x your
Correct.
Your investment.
And I can use it. And this change to RC delegations, making everything more expensive is a good thing because, we have to keep an eye on what is sustainable. What is the real cost of running the hardware that I am borrowing? Because that's the beauty of what I've done with Podping is that we're making use of a global system which other people run for us to use. And I know that they are rewarded. They get their rewards. They're happy to be running the computers. They pay their hosting costs. It all works, but it only works if the cost to me of each individual Podping does reflect what it costs to keep the network going. And there's this delicate balance, and it has to be reviewed all the time and changed. And this is what I love about Hive and the hard fork process. First of all, we got the top 20 witnesses were all signaling 26 pretty much yesterday. Way down the list, people have stepped up, upgraded. It happens by true consensus in the human version. It really does, and I'm in constant awe of it, because I look at I spend a lot of time with my other hat in the Lightning world, and we actually had a overnight night before last, was that Saturday into Sunday or Sunday into Monday, I don't know, days lose their meaning. Somebody did a transaction on Bitcoin where they're experimenting with his new thing, Taproot, or I think it's Taproot that he was using, and he did the craziest. He did a transaction which involved an account that needs 998 signatures out of 999. So imagine you have a Bitcoin wallet and you give 998 keys to different people, or 999 keys. You need all but one of them in order to make some Bitcoin move. Anyway, a guy experimented with this new capability, put this one transaction into the Bitcoin blockchain, and bricked most of the Lightning nodes around the world. Lightning was still working, but the bit where Lightning has to talk to Bitcoin, and which is what you need every time you want to open or close a channel or get Bitcoin out of Lightning or into Lightning, that broke until one of the core parts of Lightning had to be updated. And it was a stupid little condition that was wrong. Somebody had put a constant in there, and it just needed to be. I think they went from this constant being a few hundred to being 4 million now, and we can, unless I don't know, I think unless somebody tries a 4 million signing, which will cost a fortune. But anyway, that happened in Lightning, and it's just headless chicken everywhere. And the other thing, the bit that we have is we've got our own internal communication system. Mm-hmm. Everything you need to know about the Hive hard fork is written on Hive. It's not on GitHub or GitLab. I mean, it's in those places too. But the authoritative version is Hive. It's block trades and HowWow, and we all know where to look, and Hive.io. But we've got our internal system, whereas when Lightning goes down, it's just tweets and Telegram channels and Discord servers. It's a mess.
Yeah, and even somebody like Marky Mark put together a post, and he basically had a lot of technical stuff. He wrote it for the developers and for some of those who aren't quite so certain what to do. So you're absolutely correct. That is the wonderful part about Hive, and what I'm involved in. I'm doing something similar with Leo Glossary as you, where I'm using this decentralized infrastructure that to me has no cost. I know it has resource credits, but unlike Wikipedia, as long as I have enough resource credits, I can interact. And then in some of the other things I'm involved in with the finance and looking at building JP Morgan on Hive, or actually on the second layer, and some of this in time vaults, you're right, because we get these ideas flowing by writing blog posts, and then people respond to them and they have questions. And, Addicted wrote a post yesterday about Hive bonds, which I wrote about in January. And, that set off. I wrote another post this morning about it, and there's conversations. And this is how we can communicate and make things grow. And, if all of a sudden you log on and you say, what the hell's Taz talking about, John, can say here, and send you links to the post, and it's all right there. And it's like, oh, and then you can read the comments and people put other links. And it's like you try, oh, well, it's in Discord. Okay, where in Discord? What group? Well, who are these people? Where are they?
Send me the link. I can't even log on. I can never find anybody on Discord. If somebody says, oh, yeah, find me on Discord. No, I can't. I won't. It won't work.
Well, that's okay. We can't find you on Twitter either. We can't find you on Twitter either. I tried to tag Brian of London yesterday on Twitter about the show, and for some reason, you were incognito. You were invisible.
Oh no, he's a public enemy number one with Twitter, man. I mean,
yeah, well, maybe with Elon coming back, maybe Elon will say, you know what, a good good joke. A good joke about history is perfectly acceptable.
I need to find someone who can put me in touch with John Cleese. Now, John Cleese is a bit of a lefty, but I still believe that if he were to hear why and how I was banned, he would like that, or at least he would take up the case. I think the combination of John Cleese and Elon Musk would get me back on Twitter, but I don't want to. I mean, and I'm doing my V4V app account, which I'm sticking quite carefully to stuff related to that.
Yeah, you're using it for business promotion.
Yeah, I'm tired of, I'm not doing political arguments or the, American politics or even Israeli politics. I'm tired of it. I'm bored with it. I'd rather just, I feel like at least I'm doing my small part in fixing the world here with this stuff. If I'm allowing Cubans to buy canned goods, I think that's more important, actually. And I don't really care about. I'm not all that bothered about the rich nations adopting crypto. I'm more interested in Nigeria and South America and some of these other places. I think that's where we're going to win first. Yeah. And let the rich world fall over. I've got to turn off this screen that's every minute it's trying to post something and it's saying assert exception now, all last post edit is Hive comment can only perform one comment edit per block, and I'm pretty sure I'm not doing anyway. These are the little glitches, but it's behind the scenes.
I'll send you a message on Discord.
I'll get right on it, Brian. I'll something I wanted to ask you though, and I'm sure we're going to dive into more hard fork stuff because this is hard fork day, and we're on 26, so it's exciting. But you, like we mentioned when the show started, you've been traveling and you got back from Hive Fest. Do you want to talk about your experience? I mean, I'm pretty sure that was your first Hive Fest, Steam Fest, for sure, back in the day. Well, so share with us your experience of it.
It was the first in-person one because I went to the two virtual ones because I joined Steam in the summer before the Thailand one, but I wasn't sort of deep enough in to commit to flying to Thailand, which is a bit of a trek from here, so I didn't go to that one. And Andrew, my friend who brought me into Steam, he didn't go because I think his twins were born
that's APS week. Hamilton, right?
APS Hamilton, yeah.
Okay.
So and then COVID happened and we had two virtual ones. And I spoke at the second one. Did I speak? I didn't speak at the first one. I'm not sure. But I spoke at the second one, and I had to go. As I told you the last time, it's like I work for Hive now. The DHF pays me. I feel a responsibility to go and give a report on what I've been up to with the money, and obviously I wanted to, and I went to meet. It's all about meeting the people. I'm in groups on Mattermost, and I read all the posts. But you have to meet the people, and find out who Gandalf is, and block trades, and sit down and chew the fat with these people. It's totally different in person, and it's really interesting. And overriding impressions. Okay, the event. First of all, Roland put together a great event, really interesting because you can do these corporate events where you're in some big corporate soulless Marriott on the Riverwalk in San Antonio or something like that, and you're stuck in some windowless room for 2 days.
Some guy with a PowerPoint going, look at this.
Yeah. Sales in the third quarter were up 22%. It's like this was the exact opposite. Firstly, every day was a different. The 2 days were in different venues. The evening that we had to walk from the hotel to the venues, which was great. It was raining, which was great because I haven't seen rain since like May. Well, no, June, when I was on the boat in the south of France was the last time I saw rain. But it was just interesting places, nice to look at. So Roland did a great job with that. And then the mix of people is so bizarre because we are not a techie project only. We've got our absolute, hardcore Howwow, Gandalf, block trades, these guys
Then you have me and
gals. But then we've got artists, business people. Right. We've got this bizarre mix. And then the talks are just all over the map, which makes it much more interesting.
Yeah, you had block trades and hobo, and then somebody's talking about strawberry punch or something.
Yeah, and you've got the musician game guys, and I mean, I can't even like to. Just there's so much going on, and it's a pleasure to sort of sit down with these people, have some beers. It just works. I just can't speak highly of it enough, really.
It was, I mean, I went to Steamfest 3 in Poland, and it was just like you explained there. It was like every day was different. Roland puts on this epic show. Like it feels like you're at a real event. It's like what he always said is he mixes like a vacation into the event. So it's like kind of you're seeing the sights and you're doing this and that. And he just puts on a great show. And again, like you said, it doesn't have a corporate feel at all. It has a very human.
Well, John, let me ask you, how does in-person Hive Fest compare to in-person Splinter Fest? Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Killing me, man. Dude, this stupid COVID stuff is ridiculous, man. Like the only reason
is that why you couldn't go?
I can. So Canada got rid of everything, so we can come and go as we please now. You don't need vaccinations, but America, you still need to be vaccinated into the country if you're not
Joe Biden.
Yeah, if you're not an American citizen. So I'm sitting there waiting. We're ready to go to Vegas for Splinterfest, and of course, if they don't drop it, so I'm stuck here in the tundra. So it is what it is. Well, anyway,
John really wanted to go.
I was pissed, man, watching it all this past.
Where did he go? He left.
He's still here. He shut his video down.
That's. Okay. No, I have a. Oh, that's weird. I touched my YubiKey and it turned off the video. How did that happen? Okay.
Maureen told me not to touch that. I'd go blind. But anyway, that's a different story.
Don't fiddle with your YubiKey, people.
Wow.
Yeah. No, so Hive Fest was fantastic.
Let me ask you, Brian, on that. Do you feel, and I know you were very high on Hive before, do you feel more optimistic about Hive after being there, meeting these people, seeing it, or were you already so high you didn't really?
Yeah, it's hard to push me up, but it's like my optimism about Hive is like I don't want it to be discovered yet. Mm-hmm. I'm serious. It's not that we're not ready. It's just we've got so much more we can build at a steady, reasonable pace that we can cope with. That, and I don't know when it will happen, but something will come along. Maybe it's Podping, maybe it's value for value on podcasts, maybe it's stuff we haven't invented yet. I mean, I've got some thoughts of stuff like I wish someone would build. I'm going to have to write them up as posts because I don't have time for all of these ideas. But there's so much we can do with this as developers, and the way Hive wins is not through the kind of classical blogging interface that we use, but it's when somebody comes up with an application for which Hive is the perfect back end, the perfect authentication system, like Splinterlands has done. I mean, Splinterlands, you don't need to know pretty much anything about Hive, and you're playing with Hive, but Hive is such an integral part to what makes Splinterlands great that people don't understand, because they don't understand that those cards are NFTs, but they're real NFTs. They're something tradable. They're they're tradable but unique, but not unique. It's a totally weird. They have utility, and Hive has utility in and of itself, which is why the HBD has value. We give HBD value, and that's why, you know, I approve of this move to the 30%, but only if we keep generating the value in Hive. And that's what we're doing. That's what I look around and I see the other projects people are doing, the different games, the different uses. I mean, like, just throwing this one out, there should be a Substack on Hive. All you have to do to make Substack on Hive is add an email backend, which is not, when I say all, it's actually quite a complicated thing to get right.
Killing me,
and
man.
to do the formatting. I know, but Substack on Hive, why not? You own the stuff, you own everything you post, you own your list of that you're sending it to. Just somebody just do it. And that's the other thing is I see these telephone book numbers that people raise, and like I'm sitting here getting my $12 an hour, and I'm thinking, what on earth do you do if you raise $25 million? What do you do with it?
It's interesting. I was talking to the Speak Network guys. You've spoken to them a lot. And Dan one day, I forget whether it was I was just listening to CTT or I was talking to them on something, and they said one of the things about Speak Network is they're going to build out the first couple, including the money they put in, the first couple phases for $300,000. And like you said, you see these VCs, 25 million, 40 million, 50 million. It's like, what the hell are you guys building?
Where is all the money going? I don't get it. And that's the difference between, this sort of bootstrapping. Look, if I had a full-time front-end dev working for me, but I'm scared of this because I know that then I'll wind up having to I don't know. I'm almost ready for doing that, and I might well have to do it soon because there's more I want to do, and I'm just one person. But on the other hand, keeping control, keeping like your arms around the project, it just feels right.
That I think for people like you, Brian, for me, for John, for Blaine, for Dan and Starkers, probably even for Block Trades, Howu, and a lot of people, Archange and Assidio. What you just said there's so much more you want to do. We all say that. I mean, how many times do we think that and say, oh, I could do this and I could do this? And it's like, oh, shit, I got like 3 years worth of work just with what I've agreed to do. And, it's like John and CTP. And, I've talked to them a little bit. And, him and Blaine and Eliana have all these ideas. And it's like, well, Blaine's sitting there saying that's all great, but I got like 6 months of coding just with what you've given me right now. And that is really... that's what I think is going to keep pushing Hive forward, is because we have so many people who say, okay, that's great that we built this. That's great that you have PodPing, but let's build a whole financial network on Hive. Let's build a whole affiliate marketing network on Hive. Let's create more applications that do content discovery. Let's. And
let's replace gilts and bonds, the broken international bond market. Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, look, you can't do worse than the British government.
Yeah.
Listen, I was at school with someone whose father was a civil servant in the UK, and this father, you remember the program Yes Minister on Yes Prime Minister? You ever watch these? Classic British comedy. Okay, it's kind of like it was. Okay, many in the audience will remember Yes Minister. Anyway, my friend's father was basically a Sir Humphrey, and he rose to be the most senior civil servant at the Department of Works and Pensions, the DWP. And I remember distinctly him one day telling me that the entire pension system and actually the healthcare systems of the UK and of course all of Europe are a Ponzi scheme. Unless you have a growing population, ain't gonna work. And so what have they done? They've tried to replace domestic populations with imported immigrant populations, and with varying degrees of success or failure. But the fact that it was an impending collapse of an over-leveraged pension system last week that drove the pound down to a horrific level. And I know lots of people here who retired people here who get income in pounds. The Israeli shekel's killing them. It's killing because the Israeli shekel's actually kept up with the dollar. It's one of the few world currencies, that and the ruble, obviously, because we wouldn't want sanctions to work. So yeah, but everywhere else is getting crucified by the almighty dollar, which is in and of itself also shaky as heck. I don't even. What's the Canadian dollar? The Canadian dollarette worth at the moment?
Dude, I couldn't even tell you. Yeah, it's
John can't even tell you what Hive's at right now. So
I couldn't tell you what Hive is at. I couldn't tell you what Bitcoin is at. I pay no attention to any of it. I'm the worst. I'm the worst.
I tend not to care either, except that I do buy Bitcoin with Hive from time to time because I have to kind of keep topping up. Though I'm getting closer to parity in that I'm getting closer to what I really want, which is where I get about roughly the same amount going from Hive to Bitcoin as I get from Bitcoin to Hive. It's still a little bit more Hive to Bitcoin.
If you want pricing out of John, just ask him what a gold foil legend is. He'll be able to tell you that.
Oh, dude, yeah, I got the economy of Splinterlands down to a science. No problem with that. I know what SPS is trading at every day of the week. No problem. Well, I'm just a complete.
He doesn't know what gas costs them, or what you guys say over in Europe, petrol costs them. But he knows what SPS is and DEC are going for. One of the things
you wanted to talk. Yeah. Go on. You wanted to talk about something to do with finance.
We've had the Ethereum merge, and obviously the as they say, the tide went out, and we saw a lot of bare butts with Ethereum. There's been many articles talking about how suddenly now they switched to proof of stake, and the centralization is really rearing its ugly head, and all this other stuff. And obviously this has given a big push to Hive, because Hive, we can look at our block producers. There's, 120 of them, not correlated to too much of a degree. I mean, CTP and Speak are block producers, but so is Howoo, so is Block Trade, so is Markey. You got people all over the world. And then we got token distribution, which are coin voting. I mean, nobody really has more than 3 or 4% of the total token distribution. And of course, our top 20 witnesses. As long as you stay in the top 20 all 30 or 31 days, you get exactly the same number of blocks to produce because of the rotation basis. And then the 21st is rotated around. So we have all that going for us. And so we sit here and say Hive is decentralized. Hive cannot be attacked. But that's not exactly true, because if we go into the infrastructure of the internet, we start to realize that there are some problem areas. And this is something that you've touched upon a few different times. You've touched upon on these shows, and I heard you mention it on CTT a few weeks ago. And that really got me thinking. And I say, okay, this is worthy of a discussion here. So I don't know which direction you want to go with it, but where are some point of vulnerabilities that you see, and what are some possible solutions to that?
I'll give you an example actually of one from Lightning side. Most Lightning home systems, this Umbrel and Citadel and the Raspberry Pi based Lightning nodes that people run at home, they tend to run them behind the Tor network, because you don't want to expose them onto the main internet with an IP address, and you don't actually have a static IP address at home. So if you want to do that, then you need a reverse proxy, and it's technically complicated. So they put them on the Tor network, and Tor is under massive attack for some reason. It's being DDoSed all the time. It's a piece of garbage. It's slow. It's unreliable. And, slow you can deal with, but what you can't deal with is slow and intermittent. Intermittency, I mean, like right today, like in the few hours before the hard fork, with certain bits of Hive API nodes sort of going on and offline as they were being upgraded, that was the worst time on earth to be testing things, which I was testing. Tor is just flaky, but Lightning is kind of built on it. But here's the problem for Lightning. They've got no internal way. And this the root of this problem, their problem, is that Bitcoin gives no love to anybody but the miners. Only mining is rewarded financially by Bitcoin. Lightning has built on top of it, and Lightning has come up with this routing payment system and people paying for liquidity. But it's slim pickings compared to what the miners get for mining the blocks. But the miners are paying huge energy bills, so it all washes out in the wash, and they're paying for this ridiculous hardware that they can't use for anything else. So their economy is at its root. Bitcoin's greatest invention was that it incentivized people to keep it running. But its greatest failure was that it gave no allocation for any development, any change, any improvements like the Lightning Network. So who's paying for the Lightning Network? Well, it's being paid for with VC money, of course. Now, over on Hive, we've got this massive advantage, which is that we do have funds to improve ourselves. So we do have ways that people who are making cool projects can get paid, and people who are doing useful or fantastically useful core development work can get paid. So that side of it works. Now, what infrastructure do we rely on? Well, we all use web hosting. And we're not too bad. We're not like massively skewed around Amazon Web Services and Google, and we're not that bad. There are a few sort of, everybody's on Privex, and Privex has got a few data centers in Europe, but I think we're better than most on that side. Andrew tried running his node at home, which sort of worked, but in the end, I think he's moved it to a cloud-based solution now. The bit that I worry about is a lot of people are using Cloudflare. Cloudflare have built something amazing. I mean,
what is Cloudflare?
Cloudflare is the edge of the internet for most projects. So what I mean is, I rent a server from Privex, and it sits in a data center somewhere in Europe. But I can only rent one. I only need one server to do what I'm doing. But if I want that to be accessed by people all over the world, it's better if they access a computer closer to them than all the way over in Europe. Cloudflare, and for free, for the level of what I'm using it for, lets me change things around so that when somebody goes to v4v.app, most of the content might come from a computer that Cloudflare runs that's very close to that person. Cloudflare is the edge of the internet. I know that PeakD are using it, and many other Hive front ends, because it speeds things up tremendously. Now, part of the Speak network is to replace that function. And part of that is called CDN, a content delivery network. But Cloudflare does something else, which I don't see, I can only see it a long way off, which is Cloudflare can mitigate against attacks like DDoS attacks, where some malicious entity decides to take you off the internet, and they get tens of thousands of hacked routers like I've got behind me on the desk here to just start sending traffic all to your website at the same time. Now, if your website is behind Cloudflare or behind Google's product that does this or Microsoft's, then they can absorb these attacks and you stay online. If you don't have a Cloudflare, you're gone. And, it's a weakness of the internet. Can we incentivize with Hive systems to replace Cloudflare? Not really. I mean, if you go, I don't know what the market cap or valuation of Cloudflare is, but it's more than our token. Well, it's probably, I don't know. What are we? We're 300 billion or something for our token. 300 million, I mean. No, Cloudflare is going to be worth a lot more. It's going to be 10x that. So, no, we can't. We can't replace that. But does it mean we can be taken off the web? I don't think so. Not so easily. The back end, our back end bit, the way we process the blocks and the way that the peer-to-peer network that Block Trades has built around that's pretty good. But front end wise, Web 2 is still very strong. So yeah, I at least see that we've got the bits in place that might help us make that work.
So you say the CDN that Speak Network is building helps to alleviate that some, but I presume, if I'm understanding you correctly, they would be susceptible to DDoS attacks.
I don't think it would provide. I don't think they've got anything on the drawing board right now that would do DDoS protection the way Cloudflare does it. But that's not to say it can't be done. But it's just that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be built in a different way, and maybe the approach is not to try and copy Cloudflare, because you can't. There might be some other way of doing all of this stuff, and we don't know until we start. But I think we're better off than 99% of projects, because we can actually. We've managed to do this thing of tying incentives to what we want done in a way that very rarely are they aligned so well. The amount, the split that goes to running witnesses, it's just enough. The split that goes to content creation and curation, I don't know whether that's going to stay the same, or perhaps that comes down and development budgets go up. I don't know, but we've at least got these variables to play with, and we're not afraid of changing them. And the DHF, that stroke of genius of what happened during the Steam Hive fork, that's changed the game for us. That's been a real game changer, because those DHF funds have largely, I think they've had a very good track record. I mean, a few little, bits of nonsense got funded that never produced much, but that's the nature of development work. That's the nature of any kind of business investment. Most of it fails. I think we've actually had a better strike rate than most startups.
I would agree, because I think there's the dedication from people like you who feel that responsibility, that you want to throw your laptop, but you just say, you know what, I'm going to make this work, because these people are sending me money every hour, and I said I'm going to do it, and they're looking for this. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank our vulnerability based upon what you just said? And like you said, we're better than most. We have stuff in place. But on a scale of 1 to 10 on this back end stuff, not talking, the witness nodes and block producers, but what you were just referring to, would you put this at like a 1 or a 2, or is it an 8 or 9? How big a threat is it in your estimation?
Honestly, I guess I'm not the right person to ask. I just don't know. I get, I have a good feeling about it. I have a pretty good feeling that that we know what we're doing. I think our key systems are pretty good. I think, look, using Hive it's trickier for the end users. It's harder. It's harder. But then again, I look at everybody I know deal with a username and a password, and they're lost. They're all using the same passwords, or if they're not using the same passwords, they're just hitting I forgot my password every single time to log in. I don't think we're now. Are we vulnerable to a kind of malicious overuse of our resources attack? I think we probably are in some way that I can't think of. But on the back end, I think we're responsive and fast, and we're not beyond changing quickly. So I think we could, and the new resource credit system behind the scenes, there's dials that they can turn pretty quickly. So if it was found that something was spamming the chain horribly, we could stop that. The question is how much control is in the hands of how many people, and we've got this balance. It is a balancing act. But it takes 16 or 17 people reaching consensus minimum. But it's not those people, it's all the people who are voting for them. We can come to decisions to change our direction quite quickly, and that's our primary defense against any weakness that we have. It's like, because trying to it's like the French with the Maginot Line between the First and the Second World Wars, or whichever war. The French built this huge wall, and the Germans just went through, went over the top and round and through Belgium and Poland. It's like, whatever, if your only response to threats should be more flexibility. We just need to know that we're flexible.
Flexible and spread out. I mean, that to me is what creates resiliency. You go in a horizontal direction and you try to eliminate as much vertical systems as you can and go horizontal. That's resilient when you're looking at systems like these. And it does, and I did write about this because in my study of centralization versus decentralization of entities, decentralization loses in the short term because centralized is much more efficient. But in the long term, decentralized ends up winning because A, it's more resilient, and B, it's more innovative. Because when you have all these people spread out and you have all these people doing their own thing, innovation does not get stifled like it does in vertical organizations where, oh, Brian, you want to do that pod ping? Okay, write up a pro forma for us, write up a paper for us, and we will submit it up the chain. And then we'll have a committee meeting in 6 months. And if you get the 3 approval, then we'll send it to the board and blah, blah, blah. Whereas you just go out and build the sucker.
I actually, before I suggested Podping to the Podcasting 2.0 guys, I actually went on to one of the chat groups, and I said, do I need to ask anybody's permission to do this? And it's like, I know I don't, but I did. And it's like, why are you asking? It's like, if you've got the resource credits for it, just build it. It's like, we can't stop you. We might suggest, but the point is, I was there to ask, what's the best way I can do this that doesn't mess up anything else? And this is something Dan talks about all the time, which was it's the classic thing where CryptoKitties took down Ethereum because it socialized the costs of its success across all the other projects. Splinterlands to a certain extent has made custom JSONs expensive, but not very much. They're still not very expensive, and nobody's using anything like the number that they're using. And so it shows the way forward. There was another point I was just thinking, and I blew it out of my head. What were you saying? How did you go into this? You said, wind back. What are you talking about, Task? That I went off in a
Task
tangent.
forgets what he was talking about 2 seconds ago. Like, you're asking him,
I mean, which part? I mean, it's when you just start to look. I mean, the overall idea is
he's talking about vulnerability.
infrastructure, resiliency, and efficiency.
Oh no, efficiency, resiliency, decentralization. Like, yeah. Also, you come up with I mean, I've said this every time. Blockchains are the absolute worst, slowest, most ridiculous databases you can imagine. But they are the only ones you can share with a near infinite number of people and not have to have, a sign-up sheet, not have to have an access control system. It's like we share this database with everyone and everyone can read it. Everyone can write to it. You just need a little bit. You just need to stake a bit of Hive. You can write. It's amazing what happens when you pool all the data. And I mean, like, at least we're not, haven't been declared a terrorist organization like Meta was today. Did you see this? Russia has declared Meta to be a terrorist organization.
Well, I don't always agree with Putin and the Russians, but I don't know if I can argue with that viewpoint. I might be able to make that point for the Russians and to anybody. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, they used to call Google the evil empire. I think they were replaced by Meta, but anyway.
I wish I could say more, but I can't say much about our court case in Australia, but there are there are emails going backwards and forwards like you wouldn't believe. And at some point, we will be able to tell you what Meta has asked us for. And it's going in front of the judge tomorrow, I think, and it's going to blow up. And we were laughing, chuckling to ourselves and deciding whether or not we should cite the fact that they've been declared a terrorist organization by Putin, but we're probably not going to use that at this stage.
Putin right now seems to have the credibility of Elon Musk. You might want to avoid both of them for the moment till they get in a little bit, till their ratings get up like Joe Biden too. You might want to avoid mentioning him. His ratings are in the toilet. But going back to the hard fork, one important thing, because you touched upon this, and when you look at Splinterlands, when you look at Podping, when you look at whatever's created, when you talk about an app that killer dApp that finally breaks through, we have people like Block Trades on the back end who lives, breathes scaling and thinks about this all the time, and bringing some of this back to what John started with, hard fork day. We've had the size, the gigabytes of the blockchain were reduced by a factor of 2. It was a 50% reduction, which people think that's like, well, that's not a big deal. But when you say, okay, and Howu, you were at the Hive Fest, Howu said, and he even admitted, maybe his numbers aren't exactly correct, but going from like 700 gigabytes to 350 gigabytes. And it's like, wait a second, we just reduced the size of the blockchain by 50%, which means that if we're growing at 50 gigabytes a year, we could go another 7 years before we get back to where we were before. Well, and this is just one hard fork.
My Bitcoin node is gone over it's 550 gig now.
So what's Hive at? Do you know? Can you look?
I think it's 360 or something.
360
after this compression. It went down from 700 to 3. I don't listen. I tell you, I need to run a witness node. In fact, I've told Andrew I'm going to start helping run his, but because I need to do it. I should have been doing it all along, actually, but because you kind of don't. You never really understand these things until you're sort of down there running the build command yourself, and I'll get to that. It's just so much to learn. But
But
you know
that,
what?
for the average person, I don't think they realize how important a step that was, because that allows you to run smaller servers. It makes your servers more efficient. Even if you run a larger server, it's making it more efficient. It's not running as hard. The performance is better. Then you have the compression where the block validator, the block producer that produces the block, compresses the data, and all the other witness nodes get the data compressed instead of having
Yep.
to compress it themselves.
Everything that they're doing is leaps ahead of anything else. I mean, like, I dread to think, but again, it's incentivized progress. Progress is incentivized. How is paid. Block Trades earns money from running this stuff. I mean, I think I don't know what his motivation is, but he's such a nice guy, and he's so dedicated to this stuff, and he's so good at it.
I'll tell you Block Trade's motivation. He loves creating open source software. He loves, like you said, he's dedicated to this stuff because of the people he knows, the cause that is being undertaken. And quite frankly, financially, I mean, obviously, just look at what's in his wallet, and then you do the math. If this thing becomes a $5 token, then obviously you see where he stands. But
he's
that's
not doing it for that.
That's
no,
not
none
his
of us.
motivation.
It's not. And not, the same with most of the people I met at HiveFest. Is like, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a get rich slowly scheme at the best. But I'm not doing it. I'm doing it because honestly, the world is really in trouble. Censorship is really.
Podping is not going to be a major money maker for you.
No, it'll never make money.
And B4B is not going to be a major money maker for you, and you don't care.
I don't care because the development is being paid for. But even if, for example, that it would come out of the DHF forever to keep running it at the kind of cost that it's costing now or less, for Hive to have instant, almost free conversion in and out to the network that is having hundreds of billions of dollars thrown at it in VC funds, that's priceless for us. It's priceless.
Well, and going back to Block Trades, what he's producing, that, however he ends up benefiting from this, and he'll benefit, and that's fine. But like you said, that's not his primary focus, and he's taking on projects that are getting probably tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in VC funding in different ways, or at least he's helping to create the infrastructure that allows people like you, people like Starkers and Dan and other people to build this stuff on Hive, that you guys are competing against the multi-million-dollar VC funded apps, but we're at a better system. And another thing that I wanted to ask you about, which is this I also get from Block Trades, and him and his team really worked hard putting this together, the test net. And I think, if I remember correctly, maybe I was like dreaming, but I think I remember reading one of his posts where he said that we basically have a test net that is unrivaled in cryptocurrency and blockchain, because what they put together is really incredible testing systems. Did you, before the hard fork, find that to be the case and play around? And what did you find? How robust was it?
The testnet that we had this time was far, far superior to what I've had on the previous hard fork, which was the only one I've really worked on. What we did, it's not really a testnet. It was called Fake or Mirror.
MirrorNet, I think.
MirrorNet and FakeNet were being used and what was happening was everything that happened on the main chain was being copied over onto the Mirror.
Gotcha.
But you could also then do stuff on Mirror that, it was like Las Vegas, whatever happens on FakeNet stays on FakeNet. But it was doing the resource credit calculations on the fake net with the data from the main net, And it was a bit of a head. I wrote a post on it. It's a bit of a head mess to sort of get into it, because you would do a delegation. If you did a delegation on the main net, that delegation would then happen on the fake one. If you did a delegation on the fake one, or you undelegated, it wouldn't be reflected back. So all your Hive power levels would get out of whack, and the resource credits would go up and down. But it was where I tested my. I've got at the moment, and I'm watching it on the side of the screen. I've got a bot that is going to give resource credits to the PodPing accounts if they get low. But they're not going to get low because they've got these huge delegations. But I'm going to slowly withdraw those delegations, and I'm waiting to see when this bot that I tested on the fake net kicks in and starts handing out resource credits as it's needed. And in my testing on the fake net, it looked like it was fast enough that if one of my PodPing accounts ran out, in between sending 2 pod pings, I think I've set it to look every minute. It's pretty much fast enough so that nothing will get lost or dropped. It'll just sit there and wait for it to get itself, please, sir, I want some more. And it'll go out with his begging bowl, and then my bot will drop some more resource credits in the bowl, and it should, it should work. I've tested it. But, this is the thing. It's like this guy who did his test of his 998 signed block Bitcoin transaction. Did he do it on the test net? Hell no. He did it on mainnet. It cost him $4.80 in chain fees, which in and of itself is actually pretty darn impressive for Bitcoin.
Yeah, but he broke everything.
but he broke a lot of people, and like it was overnight from it was in Israel, it was Sukkot, so I'd had the whole family over for a huge barbecue. I'd cooked enough meat to get me banned from any ESG meeting, and overnight on Sukkot, and we all I woke up to this thing of emergency, you must patch your node now, and what a mess.
One final question, and I don't know if John wants to add some, or if the peanut gallery, but my final question is PodPing. What excites me about PodPing is how you have inserted yourself in with some pretty heavy hitters in the podcasting world. You have put something that is basically a protocol, as a foundation. It's basically something that could change the industry. In our previous times we've had you on, you've talked about, well, we got to get more of these podcasting apps, but to do that, it just takes time. We have to show a track record. Memory serves me, I might be off on this, but you're over a year, I think, I'm running this, maybe 15 months or whatever it is. So how are you doing in penetrating the podcasting world, this podcasting 2.0 with Adam Curry? How has the PodPing reputation been? I know you're sitting there taking on Bitcoin maxis, and they sit there and claim, oh, it's on a shitcoin network and all this other stuff. So I know you go back and forth with that, but the real true players in podcasting, where do you stand with this, and where does PodPing stand?
I'll tell you, there's a very one of the old timers of podcasting who has a podcast show. Basically, Blueberry he's come on board. He runs Blueberry, and that's one of the big hosting companies. But they also do a WordPress plugin that's very, very important. After a slow start. This guy, Todd Cochran, he's jumped in with both feet, and he's implementing PodPing for all the hosted podcasts that he has, and his PowerPress podcast plugin, which is, if I look at, I don't know, I haven't looked for a while, but if I look for WordPress, I think it's probably one of the, let's see, PowerPress plugin. I'm going to look this up. But this is now how to WordPress podcast plugin by Blueberry. I'm going to just see the #1 podcasting plugin for WordPress. It has active installations 50,000 plus. It says here it's a biggie, and it's all going to switch to Podping, and I think we've gone past 12 or 13% of all active or podcasts that have been active in the last 3 months are using Podping now. I think we're reaching that tipping point where an Apple or a Google is going to have to take note of it. It's coming. It's really coming. And in fact, we don't really know. There's actually another major WordPress plugin that has got Podping support as well. And it's hard to track how many are using it because they all have unique domain names. It's easy when it's like a hosting company. So it is. And it's getting spoken about. It came up at the most recent podcast movement conference. Not just because Adam Curry and Dave Jones mentioned it, but I think Todd Cochran mentioned it from the stage. It's in the trades. And sometimes they say Podping and it's on Hive, and then then they say it's a blockchain, but shh, don't worry about that bit. It just works. And because most people's brains have not yet comprehended that you can do things with blockchain technology other than money. This, and even the Bitcoiners, I put out a tweet the other day. What was this tweet? I've got to remember this tweet because it's profound. Because it's like I spend all my time reading about these people calling me a shitcoiner. And so I said, what makes someone simultaneously believe that Bitcoin is perfect and that the blockchain idea at its core will never be successful in any other application? Because those are the two things you have to believe to think that Bitcoin is unique. It's like there's actually other parts of Bitcoin that the Bitcoiners don't understand. The success of Bitcoin is because it incentivized the people who run the hardware. But only them.
Out of inflation, no less. Not everyone wants to be inflationary. It's like, wait a second, you run your network based on inflation.
And look at the early inflation of Bitcoin. It was off the charts. It was massive. When people were picking up 50 Bitcoin per hash, and you could find a hash basically with a pen and paper.
With a calculator.
Even John and I could have run it back then.
I think the early blocks were mined on a calculator. It's like, but we haven't yet scratched the surface of what, and it's not that it's blockchain. It's a permissionless database. That's it. That's at the core of what we're doing. And then what Hive has added is the actual working database that you put on the top to make your custom JSONs into something useful. Now, we don't even really use that yet for Podping, but it's coming. And the live notifications, I can't tell you enough. I mean, I'll say it every time. I think the live notifications changes the world. I really do. Because cross-app notifications of real-time events doesn't exist. Does not exist. There is no global message bus. Twitter could have been that global message bus if they didn't arbitrarily delete people for saying write it out 100 times or I'll cut your balls off. But Twitter can't be the world's global messaging app because you don't know whether your account is going to be there in the morning because it might think you're a bot. And the other reason why Twitter can't be there is because it's monetized through advertising at the moment. How do you pay to use it? They don't want bots because bots can't watch adverts. So bots are net negative. In fact, bots do watch adverts and they just then contribute to them defrauding their advertisers. But it's like Twitter could have done what I am doing with Podping and live notifications. They chose not to. Same with Facebook. If you close your platform, you choose not to be open. And that's the kiss of death. We have such a huge advantage by being open.
Dude, it's exciting, and we're definitely still ruffling feathers because I don't know if you guys know, but Binance tweeted out last night that they will support Hard Fork 26. They tweeted it out. They have since removed that tweet. It's no longer on the Binance account at all. So that's fun news.
Really?
Yeah.
But is the blog post it linked to gone?
The whole tweet is gone because I retweeted it and I said thanks, CZ. I went to the thing and the tweet's been disabled, and I went to the Binance account and I can't find any notice of it. So,
I tell you, that's actually why everything that I've got to tell you this about HiveFest. You know how I paid for HiveFest? This is for Khaleesi. Thank you very much. I took HBD, which I get from the DHF. I'm going to say so many 3-letter acronyms here. I'm going to sound like I'm in the NSA or the CIA, bro. I took my I took my I took my HBD from a DHF. I transferred it into PHBD on the Polygon chain. I transferred the PHBD and it appeared on my MetaMask. I then went to, was it Pancake or Sushi Swap or whichever one it worked. Or even I've got an app. I can actually do it on my phone, 1 inch on my phone. I then do a swap of PHBD for USDC,
probably.
Yeah, because it's I swapped it to USDC. Most of the time it's almost 1 for 1. Every now and then the Koreans go crazy, and a couple of times I swapped $300 and got 360. It was great. I then send that straight to a crypto.com account that I have. And I have a credit card in my hand that can pay for shit in Amsterdam. So I pay for my flight, my hotel. I even bought iPhones for my kids because the euro had collapsed. And all via that bridge. The only thing I had to do was do it slowly. It's like it doesn't work if you want to do 1,000. The rates go. But if you do a couple of hundred a day, no problem.
That brings up an important point. I know I was going to shut up, but I think you bring up a very important point. For me, being in the U.S., it doesn't really matter. For John, who's stuck in Canada and he's not allowed out, it doesn't really matter. But for most people around the world, when you think about it, HBD and the derivatives, PHBD, BHBD, however you want to do it, all of them give these people in Nigeria, in Israel, in the UK, in Malaysia, wherever you are, Japan, it gives you exposure to the US dollar. And if the US dollar, with the milkshake theory, if the US dollar is going to keep appreciating against these lower currencies, especially.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a great way for people to protect their wealth just by going into HBD. And like you said, now there are some tools to get into, where you can get real money.
Yeah, it is definitely working. It's real. That those on and off ramps. I mean, the crypto.com card is the key for me, and I can't even get that in Israel. I had to get it via a British address, but it works. And that's the other thing, is it went through very few changes, because HBD to PHBD, I don't know, does he take 0.5% or something, or less? No,
yeah, I think
there's a tiny
about 0.5%.
Then PHBD to USDC, sometimes I even made money on that one. And then USDC to crypto.com, no fee, and just basically just buying euros, which is internal in crypto.com. It's cheap. Amazingly low friction, because you could easily lose 3 or 4 or 5% of that going through most transfer systems. So that really worked. I mean, and then you've got my system of doing Lightning for the smaller amounts, but it hasn't happened yet in Europe and America, but it's going to. You're going to be able to pay for the smaller stuff, the coffees and the incidental, the cash purchases. I think that will come. That they're putting so much money into Lightning that it's going to happen.
John and I are just waiting for the V for V credit card or debit card to show up, and then we'll have it.
Oh, I haven't got them next to me. I mean, I've got these NFC cards, but programming them is still a bit of a nightmare. You need an Android phone, and it's real hooky stuff. But it will happen. It will happen. There will be an NFC card linked to your Hive account. I think you'll probably have to give me $50 or $20 to hold, because I don't think you wouldn't want it linked to your main Hive account anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You'd want to put $20 on it and know that there's only $20 on it. But I think 6 to 8 months on, I'll be able to have those and mail them out to people.
There you go.
Which will be really interesting.
Oh, well, we're all working hard to screw the existing system, and anything that's KYC, AML, anything that you screw with us and our freedom, we're figuring out ways around it.
Exactly.
We're trying to build decentralized this, liquidity pool that, anything you want. It's like, okay, screw you people, SEC, you want to do your stuff, we don't care.
Yeah. It's, it is.
Brian of London's in London. He doesn't give a crap what Chair Gensler says at the SEC, in Israel. And you don't care what Chairman Gensler says at the SEC. He can kiss your hind end for all you care.
Tuchus.
Yeah, your tuchus.
I have a license for this word.
Good stuff. Dude, always a pleasure, man.
Shkili banachat. Shkili batachat banachat. Anyway.
See, I need to know. This sounds like some bad
That'll
words.
get you banned in lots of places.
Nice.
Yeah, well, that was for the SEC and Gensler, directly from Brian of London in Israel. What did I say? Where did I say you were?
He was in London. You said he was in London. Brian of London in London.
Yeah,
Brian Brian of London.
You can see where the confusion might come from. It's been a pleasure, guys. Thank you very much for having me on again.
Appreciate
thanks
you,
for
man.
clarifying that, and join us on Hard Fork Day and explain some of the technicals that John and I really have no idea about.
Happy to fork you anytime. Oh, wait. Before I go.
Yeah.
Kara Swisher had a podcast. Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. I listen to them. I hate them, but I listen to them. She had a podcast on the New York Times, which was called Sway, but that came to an end. So she stopped doing Sway, and that feed just sat there in all our podcast apps doing nothing. And then the other day, it downloaded a new episode, and it had changed its name, and it was called Hard Fork. And it's a show by the tech guy at the New York Times, and then an independent journalist who does his own Substack, Casey Newton, who does. I actually read his stuff because he does a lot of he knows all the inside stuff about the Silicon Valley people. But hideous lefties, all of them. But they called this show Hard Fork, and they gave a definition of a hard fork that is just not a freaking hard fork. What they seem to say is that forking software means you're going to do a massive upgrade, and that's sometimes hard. What? And I went and looked, and hard fork only exists in blockchain terminology. Forking is a software development term. You kind of take a project and you fork it to go in a different direction. That's forking. But hard fork, it only applies to blockchains. We did a hard fork today, and they can fork off at the New York Times because they know nothing.
Sir,
turn that into a YouTube short.
That's a YouTube short.
This will be on 3Speak, so Brian, you can't get banned. Have no fear.
Don't fear. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, and looking forward to your return, which I'm sure will be soon.
All right. Good night, everyone.